full understanding of backgrounds and the impetus for setting up Swan.
Yeah. Good morning. Thanks for having us. So my name is Alex Greenstein. I go by Green Swan. Originally, my background was I was a bomb technician in the U.S. Navy and Naval Special Operations. And we learned everything from disarming hand grenades to guided missiles to weapons of mass destruction, everything under the sun from biological and chemical warfare agents. And then got out of that and ended up doing insurance for 3.5 years and becoming a large crop insurance agent. After doing that for a while, I kind of went down the crypto rabbit hole in 2017. I bought my first Bitcoin. I've also been a limited partner in Pantera Capital's funds. And originally, I look at like the crypto space and I was kind of like, what are the biggest pain points and problems? And I just thought crypto volatility was incredibly like nobody was addressing it. Like it was like a big problem that's staring everyone in the face, and everyone's like, I guess you just lose 70% of your investment in crypto in a year, and that's just the way that the game is. And so then I was like, well, maybe there's an opportunity to help smooth out volatility, because these aren't black swan events. They happen every year, every couple of years, sometimes twice a year. They lose half their value. And so originally I came up with the idea of organizing people in kind of like a Wall Street bets kind of way. And that was like highly regulated. You're creating a security. And I was like, okay, I wanted to target crypto volatility. And then I was kind of, well, maybe you can approach it from DAOs. And so DAOs have a treasury, and ultimately they're long their own token. And so when those price drops occur, maybe acquire it to help stabilize that token price. And as well as that price recovers, de-risk, and then kind of uncovering that not just volatility is a problem, they also have other problems in treasury management. And so we kind of dug deeper and figured out all their pain points. And that's kind of what led us down to creating Swan as kind of a volatility and treasury management solution.
And Jelly, perhaps you could tell us about you. Yeah.
Perfect. Absolutely. Yeah. So prior to joining Swan, I spent about 16 years in management consulting, the first chunk of which was in financial services crisis management. So I ended up working on the Madoff investigation. I was in New York working at Lehman when they went bankrupt and got sold to Barclays. I spent a bunch of time in Iceland during the Icelandic bank collapse in 2008, 2009. And then I spent about 10 years of my life living in Europe, working with European banks on OFAC compliance, so AML, BSA, KYC, all the things that crypto tries to occasionally butt heads with. I got to see up close and personal. After that, I ended up moving to the Middle East to work with the Middle Eastern government on building a smart city, which obviously is a pretty vague statement, can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. But in that specific context, it involved using blockchain technology to help integrate infrastructure. So things like energy, weather patterns, ambulance dispatch, and trying to build a smarter, better city for people. Use a lot of machine learning and artificial intelligence. And at that point, I started to go down the crypto rabbit hole and understand the power that blockchain technology really has. Of course, 2018, 2019, not a lot happened in the blockchain industry, kind of a big winter period right there. And then summer 2020, DeFi summer, really started to see real utility come out of blockchain. And I remember I first tried to buy a house, going through the conventional methods, lots of paperwork, real challenges there. But I was able to take Ethereum, lock it up in a smart contract with Aave, borrow US dollar stable coins against it, and buy a house. And for me, that took about 3 clicks and totally changed my world. It certainly was the red pill moment that I took. And from that point, I couldn't really look back. Crypto was certainly the place to be. And then late last year, Alex and I started working together on Swan. Really excited to be here. It's such a fun industry. It's such a great space. And it's really the future in so many ways.
Thanks very much. So clearly you've both been involved in risk management, risk mitigation. So perhaps you could tell us a bit about, the mission statement behind the business. And I guess you've already explained to us why it's called Swan.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think Alex hit it right on the head. It is not a black swan event when crypto suffers a huge price decline. It is a white swan. And Swan has the mission of smoothing out crypto volatility. The mechanism that Alex described of initially starting with a focus of trying to leverage the entire populace and social coordinating was our initial thoughts around that. But of course, as we started to go down that road, we realized that you have a bigger impact going directly to the businesses that operate in that realm. And we really see this as an opportunity for us to be able to help crypto move into a more mature state of growth. Right now, as you can tell, a lot of regulators really hate crypto. I don't think they understand it fully, and there are reasons for that. It is still quite immature in a lot of ways, but we see Swan as a necessary piece of infrastructure to move the current crypto DAOs, crypto organizations more towards maturity, smooth out that volatility, manage Treasury in effective and responsible manners, and really bring us to that next phase of adoption.
Thanks very much. When thinking about Treasury management services, often these are perhaps the last thing that DAOs think about necessarily when they're setting up. Their most important things are getting the capital, getting the liquidity pools. How do you act as a magnet for them, and how do you sort of get in front of them and get traction?
Yeah. So whenever I'm at a conference, the first thing I do when I walk up to protocols and I figure out that they're a DeFi or affiliated with the DeFi protocol, I ask them like two questions. The first question is kind of like my qualifying question is, number one is, what do you do for treasury management? And then the second question is, how much treasury do you have to manage? And I would say that I basically get the same answer, and it kind of runs around the lines of, we don't do anything, or we kind of have one kind of person that kind of does something kind of part-time. And the other thing, like, we start to realize when we're like talking with people is a lot of their treasury is actually in their own token. And so when those, I kind of back up one step. So nobody cared about treasury management 6 months ago. Nobody cared.
Yeah.
All the assets went up in value. Talking about treasury management, nobody really cares about treasury management. Now that we've seen this crypto winter and prices decline, people are like, oh my God, treasury management, what is this thing that we need to talk about? And we see like even like Do Kwon, like in the Terra collapse, we saw him like tweeting out real time, like, oh, coming up with plan to save, bailout or, Terra. And something like, it's crazy that whether you're a multi-billion-dollar protocol or you're a small protocol that's like $100 million or smaller, the people haven't gone through the simple steps of finding like, oh my goodness, our dry powder is in a market correlated asset. So whenever our price decline happens and we have our treasury in an asset that's correlated with the market, we're also losing our dry powder. And so coming up with solutions has been kind of our thing is like, maybe you invest in spread trading, or maybe you diversify into a different basket, or maybe, you have stables. And so like, we've, kind of approached protocols in kind of a way of saying, what are your current pain points in what you're doing, and then figuring out what those pain points, and then we kind of come in at a management consulting and kind of lay out an option of, these are, the things we can build out for you and the solutions we come up. And then we kind of we have a team of traders that are, fantastic. And then we kind of can build out, a solution based on what their trading needs are. And we kind of have approached it from each DAO treasury is totally different. They have different objectives. Some of them may want to use their treasury to smooth out their volatility. Some of them may use their treasury as an investment, and they just kind of don't want it to lose because that funds their operations depending on where they're at. And so we kind of first come in as a management consultant. And then the second is we build out those solutions, whether they're trading solutions or whether it's a dashboard, so that they understand how to read their risk watch and kind of like what's going on. And I think that's kind of like an overview of how we first interact with our customers.
So you talked about different solutions for different requirements, but one of the things that may be consistent amongst many DAOs is instant access to their funds and clearly security of their funds. Can you talk a little bit about the instant access and how you segregate, indeed, if you do segregate the funds to ensure security?
Absolutely. So I think if anyone's familiar with the history of managing funds in crypto, you've probably heard of a multi-signature wallet. This is kind of an earlier creation. I think it started around 2012, and it's the ability for that wallet to not simply have all of its information stored in a single set of private keys, because if you were to lose those keys or someone else gets those keys, then that wallet is compromised. So multi-sig started to create a situation where you would have multiple people making signatures to authorize a certain transaction. So we could have a situation where the three of us Michael and Alex all share a multi-sig, and 2 out of the 3 of us are required in order to make a transaction happen. Fast forward to now, and we've actually come up with much better technology. So you have the ability to create not just simply a multi-sig, but multi-party computation. So if any one of us lose the keys or we need to update this from a 3-person to a 5-person wallet, we're able to do that. And so we're using leveraging a partner, Fireblocks, which is a really excellent, great innovator in the industry, to use their multi-party computation wallet. And through that, we're able to grant our clients access to it. The custody of those assets remain open to anyone. We can set certain policies around that. And it really is a very effective way to make sure that security is very high. Of course, when trades are going on, there are certain times when positions could be open, and we may have to unwind those in a very, very short time horizon. But this gives everyone access to those funds in real time, and they're able to deal with their assets, take out their assets, move them to wherever they need to deploy them. And that way, we don't need to transfer that money back and forth. There's no sort of special authorization. We can program all of that logic and policy directly into our operations, and that makes our clients feel very good.
One thing for our audience, if you do have any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll ask them for you. You talked about programmatic and a lot of tech. One of the things that people do when they're doing their due diligence is try and understand a little bit more about the team. Could you talk to us about the team structure and how you intend to build it out going forward, please?
Sure, I'm happy to take this one. Our team, so we've got a trading team, which is really the brains behind the operation here. So Alex and I, we've got a number of different developers that are building out the Solidity smart contracts, that are building out the website and application and things related to that. But really the magic and the special sauce comes from our trading team. We've got 2 different traders leading that up. And over time, I certainly see this expanding to be the largest portion of the Swan team overall. One of the traders is a bit of a Wolf of Wall Street style guy, a little rough around the edges. That is fairly common in that industry occasionally. And another is a bit more buttoned up. You'll hear him on our podcast. He's the one who usually explains these concepts and walks our clients through trying to understand the different strategies that we're building for them. But we really do see the growth of the team most likely in that trading area, because we're going to constantly need to innovate and come up with new different ways of managing clients' portfolios. And as you can probably tell in the crypto industry, due to its early stages, there are a lot of market opportunities that don't exist in traditional finance. Great arbitrage opportunities that we can benefit from. And it's our trading team's responsibility to come up with and find those different kinds of good trades. So yes, over time, what I see the growth in Swan is building out that trading team, having more and more diverse professionals that are going to work with us and help manage those treasuries.
Thanks. A lot of investment here, I guess. So can you talk to us a little bit about how you monetize? And I guess the other question as an adjunct is, will you develop your own token?
Yeah, so originally, so a few questions is how to monetize. So when we first started an engagement, we kind of set out a proposal, and depending on how their governance, whether they go through a vote or whatever, we put together a baseline proposal with their executive team, and then we charge a flat fee to kind of build out and analyze kind of the solutions and put forth those proposals. And then if they want us to build those proposals, we either charge an AUM on the management, or we charge a kind of a profit share based on our trading algorithmic strategies, depending on each deal by deal kind of basis. For our token, originally I wanted to have a token, but as I kind of looked into like how it would benefit, what are the cons, how would it structure, I kind of was like, launching a token doesn't make sense for this. Not saying that all organizations need a token, but like it doesn't make sense you don't want third parties having input on the investment decisions of our customers. So we originally wanted to launch a token, especially if we had a decentralized platform on Swan and investment. We wanted people giving input on the how the protocol, the operations, but unfortunately I love the idea of decentralizing as much as possible, but for this type of company it doesn't make sense to decentralize through tokenization.
Could you talk to us a little bit about the competitive landscape, as you mentioned, treasury management has exploded in interest, and you have companies like Compound Treasury. So curious to understand your perspective of TAM and how the competitive landscape will evolve.
Yeah, so I think Swan offers a couple different services that lead up to treasury management. And part of that is that since our bread and butter is really the execution of complex trading strategies that are able to provide value, whether that's stabilizing token or benefiting the treasury and growing it, a precursor to that would be solving the liquidity issue and stacking that liquidity effectively for our clients, because you really can't trade effectively any token if there's no liquidity there. You'll have huge price movements, challenges around that. And so that's really kind of the first component of what Swan has to do. And there are a number of different players in that space that are providing different kinds of tooling and automation around how you can provide to Uniswap V3, which is a decentralized exchange, how you could provide liquidity in a structured manner, pattern around a certain kind of price range, et cetera. So that area has some different competitors that exist in it. The next piece is usually to diversify away the treasury from the native token of that protocol. If 99% of your treasury is your own token, very hard to do anything with that. You can't really trade effectively. It's difficult to diversify away, et cetera, if you're all along your own token. So breaking that up and coming up with mechanisms for them to get other kinds of assets, whether that's Ethereum, whether it's stablecoins, or whether you're just simply moving that into non-correlated, non-crypto assets, that is an entirely separate service offering that also has a handful of people that are playing in that space. But really, I think where we're going, the third component of our roadmap when we work with our clients is really coming up with those strategic trading strategies that can smooth out the price volatility or very innovative mechanisms to invest their treasury. And those things, I think, are really a blue ocean that we see out there. There aren't a ton of people in that space, and it's a real differentiator for Swan. So the first two parts, that liquidity component, the diversification of the treasury, there are other people out there doing it, but we really think that we offer something very special when it comes to building those custom trading strategies.
Well, thank you. With something so complex, do you work with potential partners in any collaborative way?
Yeah, absolutely. So potential partners, you mean the different protocols that might choose to use Swan for the treasury? Yeah. So those partners, I think Alex kind of walked through our overall approach with engagements, where we start off with trying to understand what it is that they want, right? And some of them, in some cases, want to stabilize their token, others want to grow their treasury. And so, yeah, when we start off with a partner, most of it is sitting down and understanding what's going on. There's also a ton of information that's publicly available. This is the blockchain, after all. So that information is out there for the world to see. And so we can take a couple of our tools that we've built and try to run some custom analytics to identify things that we think could be improved. And then often one of the challenges of operating with DAOs and partnering with DAOs is that they are decentralized organizations. And so there's usually a level of governance voting that's required in order for them to start to work with us. So we can have conversations with leadership, but it's very important for us to quickly open that up and to go into the Discord of our partners, do Ask Me Anythings, and just be available and be a friend and a piece of the community as Swan enters with the other DAO and the partnership. So getting through, getting buy-in, helping to craft that proposal for the entire community, it is a component of our sales process. And so once we're in there, we answer the questions, we get everybody comfortable, and we're able to work through any bumps in the road. We end up with a final proposal. It usually gets voted on in the governance forums and on-chain with Snapshot. And then ultimately, that is usually the beginning of the relationship that we have with any of these decentralized partners. It's a little bit different for any sort of more centralized organization where we can just speak directly to leadership, get buy-in, et cetera, and then off to the races. But it is really interesting working in this space due to the decentralized nature of most of these organizations that we're working with.
Thank you. You've been developing fairly quickly, and unlike many projects or protocols, you've actually hit your milestones. Can you talk to us a little bit about the launch, when you think it will happen, and how you see it launching, etc.?
Yeah, so right now we're currently working with, so there's kind of two, I would say, two big buyer personas. One is kind of our management consulting treasury management piece. And then we also have buy-in from investment DAOs and investors that want to participate in crypto, but they want to invest in crypto, but also not go down the 70% drops. And so we're also seeing interest in that. So currently, we're working with a couple big investors in deploying capital in that arena. So kind of the investors that want to invest in crypto, they don't want to have the 70% drops, and they want solutions for that. So that's one. And then right now, we're also in finalizing our talks on the management consulting piece of actually kind of laying out the strategies and stuff. And so we have about 3 people in the pipeline, 3 DAOs in the pipeline. And so hopefully we'll announce something in the next 30 days. By the end of June, we'll give an update of kind of who those people are once all the votes are completed and finalized. So I think we're kind of approaching it from two different ways. One is investors that want to be in the crypto space, and the second is like the treasury management solutions piece.
You've got potentially three DAOs. Can you give us an idea of the sort of diversity within which they operate?
Yeah, so one of them is like on multiple chains, and so like they actually happen to have a very diverse treasury, but they don't even like, they're not calculating from an internal standpoint. Like they don't have someone that's dedicated to treasury, so like there's no one calculating their expenses. They have a team of 12 people, and they're doing payroll. But when crypto prices, so like they're just kind of like spending money. They have a great business, and they're earning decent revenue. So first kind of figuring out their pain points. And unfortunately, being diverse is great, but it's kind of like they want assets to, like, instead of just sitting hoping for them, they would rather deploy them into a strategy that's actually like they can look and compare and see how they're doing, instead of just like riding the wave, because that's kind of what they do. As far as the other 2, I would say they're incredibly large, over like 100 million. But what's kind of interesting is like basic analytics. Like one of them has like a very key component of adjusting its price of the token based on a smart contract, and it's very interesting that that's a core component, and there's an opportunity to trade it based on its changes in price based on like a rebasing mechanism. And it's kind of crazy. It's like, we're like, oh, so do you track it to like see if it actually works, and like, does it return? Like, is there an opportunity? And they're like, no. And I'm like, so you've been at this for like 4 years now, 3 years now, and you just kind of like wing it. And they're like, yeah, that's kind of what we do. I don't know, Johnny.
Yeah, I was just going to add one other thing. If the last 6 months have taught Alex and I anything, it's that running a startup is very difficult. It's an extremely stressful experience. There's a lot going on. And ultimately, that is what our clients are going through. And it's very difficult to be able to build something. They just want to focus on building. They want to develop things. And this entire burden of the financial management of an organization is something that they frankly don't have the time for. And so we're able to fill that gap and solve that pain point for them and let builders get back to building.
Got it. Look, we're out of time almost. We've got a minute left. Is there anything you'd like to share with our audience that we haven't discussed so far?
I think we've hit a lot of the high points, but would be very, very open to having conversations with anybody who's interested to learn more. You can find us at swansolutions.io. We've got a great podcast called The Swan Circle. You can hear our amazing theme song, which was written from one of our friends. But it's a great place to be, honestly. If you're not in crypto yet, come join this community. We're building something really special, and it's great to be part of this industry at this time as we move it into maturity and start to fix some of these market inefficiencies.
Thank you very much. With that, we'd like to conclude the call, and we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.